right now on Amplified.
There's still not enough women to see it en masse as a career choice, I think. Visually, it still looks quite male-dominated, and that is off-putting. My personal kind of goal would have always been to help increase the visibility at senior management level for women in engineering, women in construction.
Hi there, my name is Dusty Rhodes and you're welcome to Amplified, the Engineers Journal podcast. Today we're chatting with a strategic leader in both green procurement, public policy and diversity in engineering. We'll be exploring ways for engineers to become more visible and influential in their work, talking about technical shifts in low carbon cement and how to hone your executive and business skills to advance your career. It's a pleasure to welcome the Director of Public Affairs and Sustainability at Ecocem Global, Susan McGarry.
Thanks, Dusty. Delighted to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So listen, Susan, I always like to start by asking people, how did you get into this world of engineering we all find ourselves in?
Yeah, so I always just wanted something that was related to the environment. I thought I was going to change the world from a very young age. That was always my thing. I was a member of Greenpeace. I was getting pictures of dolphins sent back from the team on the Rainbow Warrior. That was always my thing. And I was kind of torn between environmental science and engineering. But I have to admit, I probably didn't know a lot about engineering when I put it down. I just knew it was generally, it could be related to sustainability and in that general industry. So that was the course choice that I ended up getting. And I remember for those first few months, I wasn't really sure if I was going to stay. And it wasn't until kind of the environmental module started that I was like, oh yeah, this is for me. It was like, environmental regulation, planning, all of that. And I said, oh yeah, I can really do something here. So engineering, but definitely more focused on the sustainability side. And I thought I could make a really practical career out of this.
So, Susan, can I ask you just about your career to date and projects that you're kind of most proud of working on or that you found most interesting?
So I have a unusual career. I think these days people tend to change companies a bit more often. I've been with the same company since I graduated in 2011. I started with Ecocem as a intern because environmental services intern or marketing intern or something like that. We were just getting into launching a retail product, so bagged cement, which the company had never been involved in before. We only ever sold in bulk directly to kind of concrete producers, whereas this was dealing with, the retail market, totally different ballgame. So I kind of helped on marketing, helping to develop the product, anything and everything really that I could be useful with. I tried a hand at. And the company gave me a lot of opportunities, so I stayed. So while I say I've been with the same company for that long, I think that's nearly 15 years now, is it? Coming up on 15 years. I've had a million different roles within that company. And the company that I started with is a very different company to the one I'm with now, because we've grown, we've more than doubled in size. So I have had various roles from kind of technical manager in the Irish business to sustainability manager for the group. We didn't have that role, which is funny. We're a low carbon cement company, very focused on sustainability, but we didn't actually have a sustainability function in-house. We had kind of relied on consultants. And I'd sort of said, look, this is for me. I could do this. We started implementing all the ISO systems. We had 4 plants across Europe that we implemented safety, quality and environmental management into at the same time. That was really how I kind of got to know everybody in the business and got around all of our different sites. You learn a lot by, looking in the bins and making sure everyone's compliant for the ISO audit. So that was kind of just prior to me starting a master's in engineering management. I had kind of come to a fork in the road where it was I could either be a specialist and stay technical, stay around kind of the concrete technology side of things, or go more generalist and do sort of a business thing. I decided to kind of go the general route. And I did engineering management in UCD as a master's. And that really kind of opened my eyes to what was possible. And in 2020, I became the first woman MD in the Ecocem group and the youngest MD they've had to date. So I was 30 years of age and became the managing director of the Ecocem Ireland business, which produced about 350,000 tonnes of low carbon cement a year. supplying that to the Irish concrete industry. So that was for the worst part was during COVID. So that was over 4 years. I was the managing director in Ireland, and just last year I pivoted out of that, and I'm now the director for sustainability and public affairs, very much in my wheelhouse. So during that time as MD, while I loved it, I love talking to people. So being an MD is great. You get to talk to everyone in the business and be chatting. It's great. But my focus was policy, and a real interesting project that I was on throughout that managing director role was trying to create some sort of legal driver in Ireland around the use of low carbon materials. There was no actual requirement in this state to use a lower carbon material in construction at all. And by 2024, the procurement guidelines for low carbon cement and concrete were released by the Department of Enterprise, which dictated that 30% clinker substitution had to be used in all publicly procured concrete. So that was a huge win. Like, we've been lobbying for this and, engaging with government and kind of other people that were aligned with our views to kind of get something like this in place.
Susan, for people who don't know, can you just very briefly in a sentence explain Ecocem and where it operates? And what I really want to ask is, what's the single most exciting project you're working on at the moment?
So Ecocem is an Irish business. It was set up by a man called Donal Loreen in 2000. So we're a 25-year-old business. The core business was focused on ground granulated blast furnace slag. So that's a real tongue twister, GGBS. It is a clinker replacement. So clinker is the polluting component of cement. That's where you burn limestone and shale in a kiln, so that the machinery within a cement plant, you burn that to produce clinker. And during that process, a lot of carbon is emitted. So the goal around decarbonisation should be reduce the amount of clinker that we're using in cement. And that's really what GGBS does. You can replace clinker with GGBS on a 1-for-1 ratio. So the concrete industry really took this on in Ireland. We also opened a plant in the Netherlands around the same time, and then we expanded into France and the UK, and we're soon to open a plant in the US as well. We're working on a US production plant in the Port of LA as well. So we've really grown from an Irish business to a global business, and pivoted slightly from just GGBS to, we have a full research and innovation centre focused on new low carbon cement alternatives.
All right, Susan, let's talk cement. I mean, if there was ever a foundation for an engineering podcast, I mean, you can't get concrete without cement. But listen, the thing, your sustainability is very much a passion of yours. And one thing that the company is known for is for low carbon cement. Tell me, how is cement being decarbonised globally?
Yeah, so there's multiple solutions globally at different levels of technology readiness. So our new product is called ACT, and it's at deployment stage pretty much now. We're working on demonstrator projects across Europe.
Why the name ACT?
ACT is advanced cement technology. There's
okay,
multiple
good.
Other background to where that name came from.
Works for me.
Call it ACT. Yeah. Nice and easy. So that's the culmination of about 10 years of research, and I think about 70 million euros worth of an investment directly from Ecocem as a company. So we saw kind of about a decade ago, the cement industry needs to decarbonise because of all of the EU legislation that's coming down, and because of obviously climate change is becoming more and more critical. We kind of knew that this was coming onto the cement sector, and there was very little new technologies coming through. We also saw that the steel industry, where we get the raw material for GGBS, our main business model, the steel industry is starting to decarbonise. And over the next couple of decades, they're going to start shutting down the traditional way of producing steel with a blast furnace. They're going to start moving from that to electric arc furnaces. So the raw material that we currently use, GBS, is going to go into decline over the next couple of decades. And the cement industry need new solutions. So we said, right, we need to focus. We have the expertise in this. We need to focus our attention on creating the next generation of cement technology. What other industrial byproducts can we utilize as cement replacements? How can we use the materials that we do have available now in a more efficient way? So we produce ACT, and we have our whole research and innovation centre based in Paris. And we've got a team of about 30 researchers working on this. So ACT uses all traditional materials that we've already been using. So it uses the GGBS, it uses clinker, and it uses limestone and mineral additions, but it just uses them in a more efficient way. using kind of particle size distribution, smart use of admixtures and water reducers to make a fully robust general purpose cement that can rival the traditional cement that we have on the market now that has a very high clinker component. So that's the most exciting thing that I'm working on and the whole company is working on, is at this point, because we're at deployment stage, to get to here has been years of, once it got out of research, once it got out at the lab, it was like, well, how do you use this in practical terms? How do you get the standards changed to allow it to be used? Like, policy should be encouraging the uptake of low carbon materials. This is kind of where my main body of work is focused on.
So it sounds, you sell it very well, okay? It sounds like a great idea. I'm wondering, why is not every construction site in the country crawling over to your front door to want to use this?
Yeah, so I would have said things were very different in the construction sector kind of a decade ago, whereas like you just kind of wanted to keep things traditional. There was very little change or very little appetite for innovation. Now, things are very different. The contractors, who are the guys on site getting the concrete deliveries, pouring the concrete, were the most difficult to persuade to use something new previously. Whereas they are now the audience that are coming to us looking for solutions. It's the contractors that want to deliver new low carbon materials. They want to be producing the best concrete. This isn't just concrete related. Obviously, this is just my wheelhouse, but the same goes for kind of timber construction or using modern methods of construction. The contractors are driving that change now, whereas traditionally they would have been the hardest to push forward or to get them to take something new on. Whereas now, the reason why we're moving quite rapidly now is we have these demonstrator projects. I call them demonstrator projects. It's that there's a project already happening. There's concrete already being poured. And we're like, hey, can we do, a small area using this new cement within the concrete? You have to get multiple parties on board to allow something like that to happen. But people are enthusiastic about it. They want it. And then there's a lot of pride when it's done to kind of showcase it as well. And we had really good success with CISC in the UK as well. We did a demonstrator project in Wembley Park. We built a 2-story frame. There was multiple partners in that. Crea Concrete here in Ireland produced a precast and sent it over for us. Really hugely successful. And we've all created a huge amount of momentum publicly about that project as well, to say, look, low carbon material is possible. Low carbon concrete is possible.
When you're doing the demonstrator projects, then you're comparing your ACT low carbon cement with regular cement, old fashioned cement, we'll call it, just for yourself. All right. How do you make the comparison between the two? I mean, it's great to say it's a demo. It's like, hey, there you go. The building is standing. So is the other one. Like, how do you show people that your product is better?
Yeah, so there's very serious compliance aspects to it. There's safety requirements, fire testing, strength testing, durability testing, all of that. But all of that has been done over the past kind of 3 years, where we have a European technical assessment for this product now. So we've met the European requirements for it. And now you go market by market and kind of demonstrate local compliance, depending on what that local compliance is. Each country kind of differs. But you're also, the best way to kind of show equivalent performance with concrete is that there's no difference. That's like, no news is good news. And that was actually what was said at that large scale demonstrator in London, was like, oh, it's just the same. There's nothing exciting. It was just like pouring any other concrete, but it had less than 30% clinker in it, compared to what we use in Ireland is 85% clinker. And clinker's like the glue that keeps it together. So it's such a big difference in materials. It's like, wow, this is huge. But the actual pouring of it and the visuals of the concrete, it's all the same.
So you can answer this question if you like, and you don't have to answer this question if you like, all right? But as you know, when you're putting a project together and you're engineering something, eventually it comes to a spreadsheet and there's a cost. So I'm not an engineer, so my real world example is gluten-free bread is 3 times the price of regular bread, all right? So tell me about low carbon cement.
Yeah.
How does it compare price-wise with regular cement?
This is what always gets asked, and there's no cost premium. There's no difference. There shouldn't be a difference. It is what we're producing with ACT is the same materials that we use now. It can be produced in the cement production facilities that they have already available. You're just using it in a different manner. Instead of producing as much clinker in the kiln, you're going to be grinding it using electricity and blending it using electricity. So it's a different way of making the material. It's basically just using different kind of or proportions of the materials that produces less carbon. So you're talking about a ton of traditional cement is about 800 kilos of CO2 per tonne to produce, whereas ACT is in around 200 kilos of CO2 to produce at this point, based on kind of what we know from our production in France. So it's that much of a difference. There's 600 kilos of carbon in the difference in terms of producing it. But when it comes to cost, what the cement industry is looking at as a whole to decarbonise is carbon capture and storage. Now, this is not really practical or feasible in Ireland as a way of capturing the carbon from the cement installations here on this island. But in Europe, it is being pushed as the solution to decarbonise the cement industry. And that's the cost of that is colossal. And the industry is going to need subsidies, it's going to need funding, and it's going to result in the cost of cement close to doubling. And that gets knocked on to the cost of housing, the cost of construction. And it's not a feasible solution to the whole of the industry. You're not going to build a carbon capture and storage facility beside every cement plant in Europe. Like, that's not practical as well. We need multiple solutions. You need to reduce the clinker now. You need to find new materials. You need to use materials more efficiently. Do all of this to decarbonise from that 800 kilos of CO2 per tonne down to as low as possible. And then you might capture some of the carbon residual emissions at the end. So in terms of cost, I always get asked that. And the comparison is, it should be the same. There's no big difference. And carbon capture and storage is a much more costly method.
The minute you said it, I could see loads of people looking in the show description of the podcast going, where's the link for her website, which is there, of course. But anyway, the government plays a huge role in making any change in society. And, they've got all kinds of rules about green buying and you have to do this and that and the other. Is this changing how contractors are winning big government jobs or big jobs in general?
Yeah, like the state is the biggest consumer of concrete in this country.
Yeah.
We do have procurement rules now where 30% clinker substitution is required. That's not super ambitious. It's great. We haven't had anything. So we've gone from nothing to something, which is great. And generally the industry is adhering to that because that's not very difficult. We've already been using GGBS, the product that Ecocem has been producing for 25 years. We have a business model because the industry is consuming GGBS to lower their clinker usage. So in that regard, it's not a huge ask of the industry. I think that the government could maybe do more to push for more to be taken on and more ambitious targets. But I think there's a few different kind of items that we need to fix in the regulatory system around that. So it's quite conservative around using new products here in Ireland. Obviously, there's safety concerns, compliance concerns. We've had mica and pyrite from the aggregates being an issue that people have had to deal with. So there is a general conservatism here. But we have currently no real route of assessment for new low carbon materials or low carbon binders in heavy materials like concrete. There's nothing there. I have a new product. I have ACT. In order to allow that for use legally in structural concrete in Ireland, somebody has to take that risk on themselves through private insurance.
If you had the magic wand, what would you change?
I think I would. Number one, I'd bring some urgency to the situation in that you have a national development plan, now a new housing strategy, very ambitious targets. You're going to need new materials. You're going to need to future-proof the materials going into those projects. In order to do that, we need a method for assessment. So anyone creates a new product, they find a new material, they do their testing, they go to the Standards Authority and they say, hey, how do I get this approved for use in concrete? We need to start using this to build our houses with. This stuff is great. What do they have to do? There's currently no assessment method. So there's no route for that to be taken on other than through an engineering company that wants to do something really innovative and they're willing to put it on their own kind of insurance. We need to expedite some sort of route for assessment like that with resources, manning kind of technical committees, having stakeholder groups or expert groups reviewing these things to speed things up, to get new materials out there. We've seen it happen with modern methods of construction, that there's a separate unit kind of set up with NSAI at this point. There's rules around modern methods of construction that we didn't have previously because it was seen as a real need. We need rapid house building. So modern methods of construction, like light gauge steel, precast concrete, prefabricated materials, all of that. Like we've seen a bit of urgency around it, but still it's all taken years. Everything seems to really just take a little bit too long on the regulatory side when you have all this level of ambition in the private sector and from the state's own promises. So they kind of need to match up the regulatory urgency or lack of urgency with the industry's urgency, I think.
Susan, I'd like to move on to talk about kind of career progression and leadership and everything, because you've been with Ecocem all of your career. And explain to me, because you were the managing director of Ecocem and now you're the director of public affairs and sustainability at Ecocem Global. It's said they're two different sounding titles. What's the difference?
Yeah, so the managing director role, very focused on Ireland and taking care of the Irish business, growing the Irish business. My heart is in policy, always has been, but I think that was a really necessary step for progression, a necessary step for seniority. As I said, I got that role at 30 years of age. Like they took a chance on me without previous management experience, and I really grew into the role. It was challenging at times, but I enjoyed it. I just enjoy a challenge, but my time had kind of come at that point. I took a step back. I was diagnosed with cancer at 34 and I took some time away, and it was kind of during that I was, thinking what's the future like for me, kind of going back to work.
That changes your thinking, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It really does.
Really changes. So you kind of went, maybe you can make a bigger difference by moving from an Irish leader to be a global leader or to be promoted as.
Yeah. Like what's the driving force in my career, and it's always been sustainability and policy. So there was I could see a policy role in Ecocem sort of evolving somehow, because we had applied for some European funding. We had started having conversations with a few European policymakers because there was legislation coming that was going to affect our business. And different people in the business had different conversations, and people were really responsive to Ecocem's story because we were such a small company that had grown. We have this technology now that could literally rapidly decarbonize the entire European cement industry. So people were listening, but no one's in Ireland or no one in the company had the time to commit to this fully. So I could see that kind of down the line, and I had done the policy piece in Ireland. So while I was off, I really kind of was thinking, I wonder what I'm going to go back to. And the call actually came while I was off, and through discussions with the exec team, that's what came out of it was, I think this role is basically made for me. So now I do this globally. As I said, we're going to build a plant hopefully in the US in the next couple of years as well. So there's a global element to it as well. We're looking at partnerships globally in lots of different countries outside of Europe, outside the US. So there's a global aspect to it as well, which is exciting to me. But yeah, dealing with European officials is it's good. It's interesting.
Susan, can I ask you then how you went in Ecocem, because you kind of started at in the post room, for want of a better word. I mean, you were pretty much straight out of college, and you went to all the way to the top. What was your path from A to B?
I'd say a bit zigzaggy in terms of topics. I did the technical assistant stuff where people were calling me saying their concrete hadn't set. And I'm calling out, I'm looking at plaster, and seeing, what way did you throw this stuff up? Do you know what I mean? I've done, did that. And then that decision point of generalist or specialist came at I think I was about 26. And I remember going, there was an opportunity for a research master's in concrete that the company were looking to fulfill. And I could have done that kind of part-time. And I remember having discussions with people in Ecocem. Have been my mentors my whole life. They've been great. Really, everyone's been very responsive to me and very helpful to me. It's been all men up until recently, because as a small company in first of all, in the construction sector, and then in concrete, even more so, it's very male dominated. But they've always been very helpful to me. And I remember the chairman of Ecocem helped kind of hone in that decision. He said, I did this course in UCD in industrial engineering, and I think it was 1965 or 67. He's like, it was great. And it turned engineers into CEOs. You should have a look at that. And the course is still running to this day. And I remember I went to the open day of that and I met the course coordinator and I was like, yeah, I think this is the right idea for me. It was half engineering modules, half MBA modules. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. And the 2 years doing that opened my eyes and I started bringing stuff back to the company. And it's nearly that I kind of positioned myself as somebody that is, I'm willing to learn. I'm absorbing everything. I'm trying new things. I always brought new ideas forward. And one of the jokes with the managing director of the global business was I'd bring things to him and he'd say, do you really want to take this on? Do you understand how hard this is going to be? And there's so much time. And I'd be like, yeah, no, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Let's do it. So I just kind of kept doing that. So then when a role came up as a managing director, the fact that I was considered for that was because I kind of put myself forward as that person that I'm willing to take on a challenge. I'm willing to really put myself forward for opportunities. And a big part of the engineering degree and background is communications. They always say about engineers and soft skills. The soft skills of engineering, like the comms, presentation, training, all of that. That's what has really propelled me in my career. I don't know if you can tell, but I love chatting. I will chat the hind leg off anyone. I love talking. So honed that in terms of presentation skills. I was delivering company CPD presentations to all the engineering practices in the country. Do you know what I mean? I'd take any opportunity. If one came up, I'd do it. No problem. But to architecture practices, they need to know about Ecocem. They need to know how to specify Ecocem GGBS. I said, I'd do it. So working on that real presentation skills, the communication skills really helped propel me forward.
So it's important to be visible and to stick your head up and to kind of put yourself out there. But you don't want to be seen as egotistical. I think that might hold a lot of people back. They kind of, well, I don't want them to all think that I'm, a bit of an ego head or whatever. So, I mean, where is the line between that? Because, I mean, that one comment that you got was, well, there was this course I did in 1965 and it changed people from engineers and CEOs. And the minute you said that, I just went ding. And I'm sure you went ding in your head as well. How do you get to conversations like that? Do you have to go around and say, I'm ambitious, I want to get into management, I want to own this company one day? Or is it a bit more subtle?
It's definitely more subtle. And I will say one thing that I learned from reading. I have absorbed so many of those business books, a lot of the women in business books, like those classics. I read them all in my 20s. There's one called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And I remember reading that. You get nothing if you don't ask. And if you don't have confidence, you kind of fake it. And really, by being an open person to opportunities and being a helpful person that you'll take on workload. Now, there's obviously situations where people can take advantage of that if you're in kind of that type of company where a senior person sees that you'll take on work and give you too much work. But generally, people are nice, people are good. And I find in the engineering and construction sector in Ireland, generally people are very good. And if you have those conversations with people, you'll be surprised how much people will help you. I've been contacted by so many people. I get asked by people in Ecocem questions and stuff like that because I'm kind of approachable. I like to think I'm approachable. So if you kind of just think in that way, nobody's going to think you're egotistical or, who does she think she is? If you're a 25-year-old woman in the engineering sector and you're having a conversation with someone that's more senior, generally it's going to make you sound great if you're interested in career development and you're asking them how did they get where they are in their career and what the advice they could give you. I think that's people actually quite enjoy sharing their story and helping in that way. But I did always think and always tell everyone else that I speak to, especially women, nobody else is going to sing your praises or toot your horn. You have to do that. So just doing the work and putting your head down does not get you anywhere. You have to tell people that you did this work and that this work was hard and this is the time, the energy you put into it. And this is why it's important for the company. So whatever way that works for you in your company or in your industry, find a way of doing that in a nice way. You're not trying to push anyone out. You're not trying to push yourself ahead. You're just saying, I did a piece of very hard work and it's relevant to you. Please pay attention.
So when you were moving from engineer to management, were the business qualifications that you picked up along the way more important than your technical knowledge?
Not necessarily. Well, maybe on the people side, the people skills really help you, because obviously as being a younger MD and coming from the more technical side, without that management experience, people could have kind of doubts about my ability. But being able to have conversations with people, I mean, like, you tell me about your role. You tell me what I can do to help you do things better or can improve things. What would you think of this type of an improvement, or how we could do things better? And people respond well to that. So the people skills, definitely. But I knew the business inside out because I had the technical background. And I think that's a really key thing with engineers. You can have get a really strong technical base, and you can be a good manager if you just, learn the basics of people skills, make sure you're taking care of people. I'm a people-led person, always have been. My style would have been an empathetic leader, focused on the people first, but I knew the business inside out. I wasn't so strong in the financials or the commercial because that hadn't been my wheelhouse. So I had to put extra time into those areas. But generally, having some sort of a strong base behind you gives you that advantage, I think, more than anything as an engineer.
Susan, you're a member of the Women in Engineering Group, which is now a fully fledged society within Engineers Ireland. Why is that a big change?
Yeah, and I love it. I love that topic. So I was listening back to the other episodes of this podcast, and Colette O'Shea from Ecocem was on one of them. She's great. So she was the chair of the group kind of when I started with them. She's just stepped down now. So they are the first dedicated women's division, women's society within Engineers Ireland. You would think we don't need it.
That's why I'm asking the question. I would have thought we don't need it in this day and age.
It's hard to find a network because we are in the minority. So when I graduated as an engineer in 2011, 11% of the engineering population was made up of women. In 2025, it's still only 11%. It has not changed. That's a very small percentage. So when you want a network, and you do need a network, that is something that I tell everybody. You need a network. You need somebody that you can pick up a phone to that's kind of like-minded or will just listen to you. As I said, I have a lot of men as mentors in Ecocem. That's great. But nobody can relate to you in that way. It's different. And there's certain things that you might...
But I know what you mean.
It's sometimes a little bit easier to have these conversations with women. So you do need a network. And that the Women in Engineering Group created that network for anyone that's participated, anyone that's gone to the events. The big event this year, it was amazing. It's in the Mansion House. Like, it was a huge event. I don't think people realised how big this was. It was a huge event. I was on one of the panels with Cora Sutton from CS Consulting. Like, that's a network. Do you know what I mean? That's someone that I know that she's also in a leadership position in the sector that I can chat to, and she can relate to what I'm talking about. It's so important. And this, I feel like, especially rang true when I came back to work after being off for surgery and treatment with breast cancer. There's a lot of impacts on a pre-menopausal woman from the treatment. There's a lot of impacts. You have to look at IVF to preserve your fertility, because chemo can have a detrimental impact. You're put into kind of induced menopause to protect yourself during the treatment. All of this is like you're seeing all levels of the hormonal changes that women go through in their career lifespan, and you need people to talk to during those times. I had friends that had done IVF. I have friends I've had that are in perimenopause. And when someone's telling you, like, oh yeah, no, that's awful, the reality of it is so much more serious than that people need help. People need a little bit of grace time. They might need to, take some tasks off their desk for a couple of weeks until they, get to see their GP and get sorted, and then they're fine again. That little bit of support keeps women in the industry, But if you don't have anyone that you can share that content with during those times, it's so much harder. It's those little invisible barriers that people don't really recognize, that like you might end up she might actually just leave her job, step back, whatever it is, and just, that's another person exiting, that's another woman exiting our profession. Whereas like, give her a little bit of grace or give her a support system, she might stay.
Having that support system there is fantastic. I want to go back to what you mentioned about 11%, and then it's still 11%. Why? Why is it still only 11%? This is the big mystery that I am banging my head against the wall going, but I mean, that's ridiculous, 11%. Why?
Yeah, and like the women that you meet in the industry like are so ambitious and so interesting and all that. It's not like, it's such a great career, but I just don't think it's appealing to people at kind of the choice stage. So at that second level.
But what puts them off?
There's still not enough women to see it as en masse as a career choice. I think it's still visually, it still looks quite male dominated, and that is off-putting because it's not, you don't see someone like yourself doing it. It's not as interesting. There's a lot more now moving. There's a lot more women going into, say, biomedical, pharma, that side of things, which is great because it's more visible. There's getting a lot more kind of media coverage. There's loads of jobs in it. It's great money, all of that. Whereas it's particularly in my sector, heavy, like civils, like it's in materials, it's seen very kind of like real dirty, dominated by men, rough and ready out on site. I'm not on site. I've turned this into a policy career. I still identify very strongly as an engineer, but I've made a policy career out of it. I think there's a lot of work being done to help change things and promote things within kind of school age. But my own mission, sounds very serious, but my personal kind of goal would have always been to like help increase the visibility at senior management level for women in engineering, women in construction, because the senior management levels who makes the hiring decisions can help shape policy around maternity leave, the bereavement leave for baby loss, IVF cover, all of that. When you have more people in those decision-making roles that represent women's interests, it can start to see a shift. And you can see that in a lot of the companies, the large employers that have put a lot of time and energy into this side of things. You can see that they've attracted more women in through their pipeline as well and kept those women from graduate all the way through. So it's not about quotas or anything like that. It's about more women need to get through the system and get to senior management level to help influence the change.
Yeah. It's like it's a numbers game. If 100,000 people join the engineering system tomorrow, well then everything would change overnight, and it would be better. I reckon it would be, anyways. So I'm thinking about people who are listening to the podcast now in engineering. What is it that those people need to do to get more women involved?
I would say, if you're at a kind of senior management level, decision making level, to look at your policies. Number one.
Well, no, I'm not talking about senior management level. I'm just talking about, say, ordinary engineers, and they're sitting there and they're kind of thinking, we should have a better mix around this office. I mean, how do they? I
would say speak about it out loud. That's one of the things, because that kind of like, it is the way it is. It's always been like that. Like there are companies in this country that don't hire women. That is a fact. It's not written anywhere, but that's a fact. It's not in a hard and fast rule. It's just generally look at the interview panels, how many of them are women, and then how many of those women that happen to be on the interview panel get through to actually having a role. Does every company in the country have a maternity leave policy outside of what the state dictates we have to have? What safeguards do you put in place where when she has to step back from her role and takes it back, what's the handover process? What support does she have to come back on maybe a 3-day week for the first 6 months? Like, look, it is very much up to everyone at every level to question things. And it's just the way it is. It's just been the way it's been for 15 years. To 2 decades, nothing's changed. We have such ambitious targets in the National Development Programme, the housing programme. We need to attract people to this industry. We're putting up billboards in Australia to attract people back to Ireland, to build in Ireland. Like, start working on the 50% of the population in this country that does not think this is a career choice. That would be a great way of kind of boosting our overall workforce.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you look back to, none of us were around, but think about World War II and, kind of all the men were all fighting and all the women were getting more into the workforce, which was fantastic. And it made a huge societal change, and like if something like that was to happen to engineering, I think we would see the same kind of change, and it would just be, I don't know, it's a huge societal thing, and it'll be time, and it's people like yourselves and the group and everything that are pushing it out there, and they are affecting change. So I just want to say thank you.
This is why I say yes to doing the podcast. This is why I said yes to telling my story at the CIF Women's Day in March, which was like massive for me. It was 600 people. I'd only come back to work the summer beforehand, and I stood up on stage and told everyone I got cancer at 34 and this is my career, and like very exposing. Like that's why I'm okay saying it now. Very exposing. But the reason I did it is because you have to be visible. I just feel this kind of need to put myself out there in terms of my career, what I've done, to then people will see me. People will see me. They'll see the likes of Colette. They'll see, Mags Dalton from PM Group, whoever it is. Then they go, oh, that's an interesting career. Look at her. And that's that. You just trigger a decision in someone's head.
Well, aside from the product, just what you say about being visible and about how to be visible without being egotistical, I think is a huge learning that I have taken away from our chat today. If you'd like to learn more about Susan's work, please check out the links in the description area of this podcast. But for now, Director of Public Affairs and Sustainability at Ecocem Global, Susan McGarry, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation today. If you know another engineer who would appreciate these insights, please do share the podcast with them. They can find us simply by searching for Engineers Ireland wherever they listen to podcasts. Our podcast was produced by justpod.io for Engineers Ireland. For advanced episodes, more information on latest trends in infrastructure or career development advice, a ton of advice on the website at engineersireland.ie. Until next time, for myself, Dusty Rhodes, thank you for listening.